Thank you for your time.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm greater than Accra, Prof. Thank you for your time and sorry for the mishap.
No, that's okay. Yes.
Great. Now, Prof, yesterday you saw the showdown in Parliament.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Grace, I have always believed that if democracy is going to grow and
Prof, you would have to readjust so we can hear you. Your line is cracking.
I think it is a disgrace.
Mm-hmm.
In my candid opinion,
right?
I believe that if our democracy is to grow and develop, we must see such kind of behavior.
Now, Prof, this is not the first time we have seen this level of disgrace in our parliament.
Yes.
The recent memory that we have is when Speaker Bagbin was going to be elected.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw how soldiers stormed into Parliament. We saw MPs chasing each other. People were slapping each other. People were sitting on other slabs. People were chewing ballot sheets. And we did next to nothing about it. Do you think that is what has emboldened our parliamentarians to misbehave like this publicly before all of us?
No, I think it's not only that. I think it also has to do with how our parliamentarians really practice democracy. And you can disagree or agree with somebody, but at the end of the day, it shouldn't degenerate to this kind of behavior. I believe part of it comes from the fact that, and this is my view, that the current minority in Parliament are still reeling from their loss. And I don't believe it is right. If it's anything at all, even if, let's say, either part of the House is right, they shouldn't degenerate to that. So I'll bring it down to the personalities, the unwillingness to show maturity. Not only maturity, but also to respect each other, even though you are on the opposite sides. Yeah.
Now, yesterday, we saw parliamentarians urging their colleagues on to destroy public property.
Yes.
What do you say to that?
It's very unfortunate, especially people that are public servants. And they are supposed to lead an example for the youth to follow. And is it therefore, not a disgrace to see some of our youth after elections engaging in similar kind of actions? We need to change that. I mean, it's not on. I might agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
We might have one or two verbal arguments or whatever, but that doesn't mean we should get into like brawling. I mean, it's a democracy. It's not some kind of a tug of a war, something like that.
Prof, it's
very sad.
Right. How does Parliament purge itself of this disgrace?
I think it is important for first the Speaker to put together a committee, and they should look into it and really come up with ways of enhancing their, standing orders.
FM, the best
and then,
in the
apart from enhancing the standing orders, there should be some kind of punitive measures. For example, if a parliamentarian doesn't come to Parliament for a certain period of time, without the appropriate permissions, I mean, they are held to account. It should be the same thing in this case, that they should try to put a stop to this, because it's a disgrace.
I'm not sure Parliament, as we speak, has the Privileges Committee properly constituted. But even if it's not constituted, it is something they should look into. But I'm even saying that even if it is not there, in civilized societies, you don't degenerate to that kind of
Sunrise on
that
3
lawless.
FM, the best in the morning.
Be there for people who are actually tasked with making the law. I don't think this should be happening there. You know what I mean?
Now,
that's my That's my view of it.
I get you. Prof, yesterday, the police were there. If you and I destroyed state property and the police saw us, they would arrest us and bring us to book. The police were there, but they did nothing. We saw them carrying tables rather and decided not to act and enforce the law. Were you disappointed as I am?
No, not only was I disappointed, I think it's appalling. The fact is, even our police services, our security, it needs to be re-looked at. I've written in some of my work in places where I believe that even some of these police, they went through, what do you call it, protocol. It is not as really, getting people who really are there to be able to police. I mean, in other countries, you cannot do that. They will stop you. But here, they wouldn't. And probably they might say that, well, it's in parliament, therefore they are not supposed to engage in anything. But I don't think so. I think in any civilized society, there are some things that you just don't do. It is frowned upon and so on and so forth. So I think at the end of the day, it's not just... we have a lot of work to do in this country. Let's put it that way. But I think it is sad that people who are supposed to make our laws and should know better, engage in such kind of brawl. When you talked about what happened before, where Speaker Bagbin was going to be voted, and there was this brawl, it should have been something that people should look at and say, wow, it shouldn't be happening. Yes, we are a young democracy, but we can't keep on being young. We need to grow. All of us were young once before. We were doing a lot of stupid stuff when we were kids, but now that we've grown, we've matured. I've been in situations where I disagree with people. I get angry, but, I bite my tongue. That is maturity. That is how you grow a democracy. I don't agree with you, but I'm calm, collected, and then, we move on. But if we degenerate to a point whereby, only the strongest or the fittest can survive, then we've got to annihilate each other. Yeah.
I hear you. Prof. David Abdullahi, Senior Governance Advisor, Africa Parliamentary Network. Thank you, sir, for your time.
Thank you very much.
Great. Next, we'll go to Sami Obin, who's the Chief Servant at the Africa Parliamentary Network. Thank you, Sami, for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning.
Did you see this coming, the confusion in Parliament yesterday?
Not in the way that it happened. Remember that a few days ago, at plenary, we saw situations where the minority on one of those days disrupted the proceedings. The House had to take a quick break and come back, and then things continued. Then we also saw how the day before yesterday, Speaker Bagbin himself at plenary cautioned the appointment committee. In fact, he mentioned to them that respect must be earned, and that he's been watching, he's not been very happy with some of the things that are going on, and he thinks that the committee must sit up. If you put these things together within the context of a parliament that has a history of chaos from the just ended 8th parliament, it was looking like some of these things may emerge. But for it to have emerged the way it did, and around the circumstances that it did, was most unfortunate.
Now, let's look at this parliament and the previous parliament. We all know what happened in the 8th parliament when Speaker Bagbin was going to be elected. I know that you, at some point, had written about it, spoken about it, that people had to be brought to book. We had a bipartisan committee, we did the hearings, etc., but no concrete decision was taken. And then now we're in the 9th parliament. Do you think that that happened yesterday was inspired by what happened in the 8th parliament because we did not take an action?
Oh, absolutely. And Jody, I think I've said it on your platform a couple of times, that any institution, just like
Sunrise
Parliament,
on
that decides not to
3FM,
take
the best in the morning.
strong action on some of these indiscipline, some of these terrible conducts by grown men who are supposed to be honorable members of Parliament, then what happens is that people get emboldened. They see it as business as usual. They see it as one of the parliamentary practices that they can deploy when they feel aggrieved with a matter or they do not agree on a matter. And so these are only shadows from the past, shadows from inactions and indecisions from the past. And that's why this morning at Parliamentary Network Africa, you'll notice that we sent out a release, this time calling Mr. Speaker to say that, Mr. Speaker, this cannot be treated as business as usual. In the past, you gave the rather flimsy excuse that when this was happening at a time when the Speaker was being elected, he was not directly in the chair, he wasn't Speaker at the time. So he was going to make sure that, the necessary actions get taken. Nothing was done. Then we saw all the things that happened during budget hearing, e-levy related matters, first deputy speaker to take the chair or not to take the chair, and all of those things. Nothing was done to anybody. And yet we make it look as if the powers of Parliament to haul people before the Privileges Committee and to punish them severely is only for you and I, who do not hold that title honorable. But it is not. We make it look like the only people that can be charged for criminal conduct in instances like, getting physical, destroying public property, are you and I, because perhaps HON is not in front of our names. That is most unfortunate. And these things, when not dealt with, will embolden people to do more.
Now, we saw destruction of public property. I know that you have reported from Parliament for many years until you dovetailed into civil society organization dealing with parliaments in Ghana, Africa, and the rest of the world. There's a police station in Parliament, and I know you know about it. There are marshals there. What should they have done yesterday?
You see, unfortunately, the parliamentary service and the people who serve in there, great professionals as they are, there's been that culture of unbridled respect for members of Parliament to the extent that in instances like this, they refuse to stand out, call out members of Parliament, and bring them to order. Because you are right. There is the Parliamentary Protection Unit of the Ghana Police Service stationed there. There is the Marshal's Department responsible for general security. One will argue that when it comes to matters relating to marshals, they take some of these actions upon directives, right, by the leadership or the speakership.
Right.
But when police sees people at each other's throats, understandably so, yesterday a couple of policemen entered the room, right, tried to separate people here and there. I know that they work with command structure arrangement. I do not know what their commander at the Parliamentary Protection Unit, and the other folks are going to do about this. But you see, I think that we must create a nation where everybody is made to clearly understand that irrespective of who you are, when you misbehave in such manner, you'll be dealt with. And you see, what is even more shocking, and I keep saying this, I've said this over the last couple of days, is that the Appointments Committee is one of the very few committees in Parliament. In fact, one of about 3 committees where, out of the 30-plus committees that Parliament has, where the membership is specifically listed as leaders of Parliament. So out of the statutory 9 members, 6 are supposed to be leaders, front benches. First Deputy Speaker, deputy majority leader, minority leader, the whips, all the leaders. If this is how a committee of leaders can behave in front of the cameras on live national television, you can imagine what will happen in a committee of backbenchers.
Now, the title honorable, what should we be doing with it now, given what we have seen on national TV?
Tony, I don't really think that it's about what we should be doing with it. You know me that by way of my own personal principles and understanding of even the usage of that title, I see that title as linked to the constituency. And so if you, Johnny, are a member of parliament, and you've heard me on many of the interviews, I really will not call you Honorable Johnny Hughes. I call you Mr. Johnny Hughes, Honorable Member of Parliament for TV3 constituency.
Right.
Or 3FM constituency. Because, you are the Honorable Member of Parliament for that constituency, and it's not in your name or to your individual person. But you see, it is rather about what they should be thinking about what would eventually happen to it. And if they have forgotten, they must recognize that a few months ago, in sister country Kenya, when the citizens realized that the people they call honorable members of parliament can no longer be associated with honorable acts, citizens decided to go and show them that what they are doing in parliament, their citizens can do worse during the invasion of the Kenyan National Assembly.
Right.
And you see, sometimes we feel that some of these things may not eventually, but that is what happens when you erode citizens' trust so much in an institution. And this was such a simple matter. Somebody was joking this morning that even primary 3 school children, when they are playing football on the Carnation school park, and they have a disagreement, they will usually have captains called to the side with a referee and try and settle it, because they know that that's the way to go. This is a group of members of a committee who had every chance to move into the next adjourning room in private, knowing that the cameras were there, and to discuss whether to continue with vetting or not to continue with vetting.
Right.
They decided we'll have none of that. We'll show the people of Ghana that we are the group of people who can break chairs, break tables, destroy microphones, hold each other by the throat, and we'll teach our people that this is what it takes to be a leader. And if nothing happens with this current act, I'm sorry, but we would have lost whatever modicum of hope that we would have in the leadership of the current parliament to be able to bring any discipline anymore.
Mr. Samuel Abeng, I'm grateful for your time. Thank you.
Pleasure.
The Executive Director of the Parliamentary Network Africa. Now we'll go to a renowned political scientist, Professor Alidu Seidu. Prof, good morning. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for the opportunity.
Is this the kind of parliament that you had envisaged and thought all of us about?
No, sir. I think what happened last night was one of the lowest of the activities of Parliament. I think one of the best marks of a good democracy is consensus building and making compromises. And Parliament epitomizes one of the best avenues where consensus can be built. And see, even in developed democracies where partisanship is very entrenched, they have bipartisan committees that allow them to ignore their partisan ideological differences and be able to make decisions in the interest of the country. So I think what happened last night was not something that should have generated to this level. If there's a disagreement, there's a way. That's why you have parliamentary leadership. The leaders in that particular committee, the chair and the ranking member, could have excused themselves, and agree on what to do, and then come back and then relay it to group members. So their inability to do that actually exposed Parliament to a lot of ridicule. So largely, if you look at most of the challenges that parliaments face in other systems, they are usually able to find a way to dialogue and to make sure that the right thing is done. And this is not the first time. Ghana has won a lot of accolades because of the way we have comported ourselves in democratic dispensations, especially in the way we conduct elections. In other countries, it has generated to conflict and fisticuffs. We have been able to use the requisite democratic institutions, even where we disagree, such as the judiciary, to settle our differences. So it is very, very unfortunate that it happened last night. And see, this is a kind of parliament that has been trying to protect its image.
Right.
Just 2 days ago, Bakavomogo was summoned by parliament for making an allegation that actually believed to have impugned the integrity of parliament. It means they care about the image of parliament and how citizens perceive that institution based on the perceptions. So if you yourself go to the extent to do this, then it means you are moving one step forward to protect the image of parliament and then 5 steps backwards. And this is self-inflicted. This embarrassment or whatever they have suffered is self-inflicted. And it also sends a wrong signal to the kind of image parliament should project in our democratic dispensation, especially to the young and upcoming people who want to be parliamentarians.
Right.
So if my kid is sitting with me and watching this thing happen, how do you expect him to behave? And I think this is a financial loss to the state, and it must be cost to them to bear it, so that subsequent, and even if there are other disciplinary measures that should be taken, it should be taken. You see, I don't see why Parliament should be disciplining citizens for doing the wrong thing, and they don't discipline themselves when they do the wrong thing. So I think they have to set an example and make sure this doesn't happen, because definitely it will affect their image.
Now, Prof, the happenings in Parliament yesterday, there are people who have also said that, look, these parliamentarians who insist that we must call them honorable, are they really, really honorable?
I think it is not so much about the title, but it is about the behavior and demeanor that you put up when you are carrying those titles. So I think to be called honorable is meaningless if your action doesn't reflect the accolade. And there are a lot of people in this country who have no titles, but their behavior and attitude and temperament has won them a lot of respect and admiration. So I don't think it is more about the title is weightless if your attitude and behavior and comportment doesn't reflect that particular title. So we can still call them honorable, but if they behave contrary to that particular accolade, then it's just a mockery, to be honest with you. So I think their behavior should typify the accord, the respect that the citizens give to that is the people, that the MPs, but also the position of the legislature in our democratic dispensation. And I think a lot has to be done to be able to reverse this negative stereotype and to be able to look. When you look at the Afrobarometer survey, when they talk about people's perceptions towards state institutions, I think it was one of the institutions that was doing well. You will have seen that the executive and then the judiciary, the EC and all those people were ranked very low. But we didn't see that for Parliament. So I think they were doing well. But some of these things would definitely downgrade their performance in a lot of indices that measure parliamentary democracy. And that would not be good. We have won a lot of accolades, especially in the Fourth Republic, by what we have been able to do. But if we keep behaving this way, one, we are going to downgrade the respect and the integrity that we have in the parliamentary institutions as citizens, and two, at the national level, we are going to falter in rankings, and definitely citizens watch, and citizens don't forget. They may not talk, they may not do anything. The backlash will be on social media, but they will wait for you in the next 4 years, and then they'll teach you a lesson. And the results of this year's, last year's election should be a quick reminder that whatever they do, we watch.
We watch, but should we judge?
Sorry?
We watch. As the Gen Zs will say, we watch, but should we judge?
Yeah, we can. We have the right to speak to the actions of Parliament as a political institution. It is part of the democratic participation processes. And for the fact that they represent our interests and we vote for them, we have a lot of say in what they do. So if they are doing a lot to enhance democracy and to protect our fundamental freedoms and civil liberties, we must praise them and encourage them that they are doing the right thing and they must continue. And if they are doing something that will bring their reputation into disrepute or their individual perception, we have the right to also let them know that the tangent that you are moving will not be good for our democracy, will not be good for your image, and will not augur to the interests of we the citizens. So we have the right to let them know that what they are doing is either right or wrong, and to encourage them or to rebuke them. And we have the right because they serve our interests. And if you don't tell them, who will tell them? Because you just don't have to wait till when it's 4 years and then you vote them out and say you weren't doing this.
I see.
We also have the right to preempt them, to remind them, and to reprimand them, and to praise them when they are doing the right thing. And when they are doing the wrong thing, we should also let them know. And that's what happened last night wasn't good for the image of Parliament, democracy in Ghana, and the world at large.
Now, this morning, they will reconvene as a Parliament of the Republic of Ghana, the ninth Parliament indeed. What should they be telling Ghanaians when they first meet and the Deputy Speaker or Chairman calls the meeting to order? What should they be doing ideally?
I think they should admit that what happened last night was not properly handled. It could have handled better, and apologize to Ghanaians. I think that should be the first thing they should do. Honestly,
right.
it was an eyesore. So the first thing they should do is to admit that they could have handled what happened better. Though, no matter the grievances, they could have handled it better. They should admit that and then sincerely apologize to Ghanaians and promises that this will not be repeated in future. And then we move on. Those who forgive them, and those who punish them at the end of the day will also wait till that particular time. But I think the first thing and the most decent and respectful thing they have to do is to admit that they could have handled the crisis last night better, and they sincerely apologize to Ghanaians for causing those kind of irreparable damage to their image. They have to do that.
Prof, final question to you. Beyond the destruction of state property, we also saw the ball, as we call it, or rubbish, take away parks, etc., on the table. Well, what does that say of our Parliament?
I think it's all part of the things that we think should not happen, especially the Parliament House. Not just Parliament House, the precinct of Parliament House is holding high esteem because of the representative role. Almost all the Ghanaian population in this country are represented there. So it is a holistic microcosm of the Ghanaian population. So I think, look, they are not just Parliament, the MPs that are supposed to come and make laws to do representation, all the functions, but they serve as a role model to society, to democratic institutions. They are very important to the integral part of our democratic institutions and they hold the core foundation of democratic development. So every actor in the political space look up to them. So they should be reminded that they are not just playing their role, but they are also serving as a role model to a lot of people. And when people see these things happen, if a primary school child see what happened yesterday and he finished drinking sachet water or bottled water and throw it in the gutter on the street rather than the dustbin, then what moral right do you have to tell him that he should do the right thing? So I think that they should realize that people watch them, people admire them, people want to be like them, and they are role models to people in society. So whatever they do, people watch, and it can affect people's development and thinking and growth and perception and professional interests based on what they do. So they shape people's lives. People look up to them. So that should always be, they should always be mindful of that, and that should guide how they behave moving forward.
Professor Ali Duseidu, always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much indeed.
Thank
We're
you
grateful.
so much. Okay, yeah, okay.
And Prof is a renowned political scientist joining us. But now, let's talk to the man who was in the middle of all the action, witnessed everything. George Echo Chestnut Quaining. Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you, my big brother. I hope you're also fine.
I'm learning. Yesterday, we saw the chaos in Parliament. You were there, Philly Gadoshi. What can you share with us?
Okay, so yesterday, if you ask me personally, it was not a good sign, right? But it's just the minority trying to prevent the veterans from going on because it's been a long time. So the majority on their side were persistent that they should be carried. So right after the vetting of St. George, then came the Minister Designated for Sport and Recreation, that's Okudzeto Ablakwa, followed by the Minister Designated for Transport, Nipe. So the minority stand was right after Nipe, which is a transfer method basis. That would have been the end of the vetting. But then in the waiting seat, Akandoh was there, Minister Designate for Health, and the Minister Designate for Foreign Affairs, Okudzeto Ablakwa, were all in the waiting seat. What that meant was, if they had even carried on with Akandoh, then Okudzeto's interview would have also been done. So that is why the minority refused that the clerks went ahead with administering the oath for Akandoh to continue with the vetting. So that's what really brought about the confusion yesterday.
Now, the meeting room or the committee room, is it fit for purpose today?
Okay. So, as it stands, it's very fit for purpose. Yesterday, there are something like 3 mics that got damaged, and all these mics have been replaced, not repaired, replaced. But for the table, it has been brought to the main. So that table that got broken was the very first one at the minority side. So the table that really where Shaib sits was the part that got broken. So that table has been brought to the nominee side. So more like it's been, let's say it's been repaired. But it's still among the several tables, in the chamber. But it's just been changed. And yeah, it's because yesterday, according to the majority, that they would have used the speaker's office as an alternative space. But once these items have been replaced, then it will still have to be used for its purpose.
Who were the people who destroyed the microphones?
So the microphones, I can totally tell you that it's the MP for New Japan.
On 3FM, the best in the morning.
The MP for New Japan.
The former
so the two of yes.
Former Free Zones Board.
Free Zones, yeah.
Or Trebefi.
Yeah.
He was the one who destroyed the microphone.
Yes.
And who else?
And so that Shaib was also in the MP for
Jerry Ahmed Shaib, new MP.
Yes. New entrance, yes.
Wow.
New entrance, yes. So these two were very, very active in the controversy.
But Jerry Ahmed Shaib is a leader in parliament. He's one of the whips,
exactly.
right?
Okay, second deputy, yeah. So for me, I felt like if the cameras were up, would have made them, been a bit, those who would have got some sort of panic. Because at the end of the day, if you're doing something that is causing a mayhem, and the cameras are up, that's evidence. And so that will sanitize the whole system. But he was still looking on and doing control the act whilst, the videos were being taken. So clearly, if it was an intention, they've achieved whatever they wanted to, but it doesn't really look good, even on the part of the constituent. I don't know if he'll be ready to give some sort of apology or swear up, but it was terrible yesterday.
Who was urging them on to destroy the things?
Okay, on video, I know the MP for Wageji, telling them to break the tables. So if that was easy to go by, then maybe Ahmed Shaib would have taken the orders of his senior colleague and all that. Because that mayhem, if really those directives or orders were anything to go by. It was right after that, it's like he wants to do something, he wants to pursue an act, but he needs some sort of directive to go ahead. So if my senior colleague is urging me on it clearly, then as a new entrant, I can actually go with that directive. More like it.
I see. George, finally, what time are they meeting today, and what indications do you have? Are they going to apologize to Ghanaians, or are they going to treat their business as usual? What do you know?
Okay, so yesterday, the majority leader said the session will begin at 10 a.m. And I think on the part of the appointments committee, they don't have any choice than to apologize, because this parliament is more like a beacon of hope. Most other jurisdictions look up to us, and so like the majority leader rightly said, the reputation has been bad, and so we take lots of efforts to repair that. But the Ghanaians are understanding, so they understand. But even though he's made that very apology yesterday, I think the chairman didn't speak yesterday. So it would be very important that maybe if they went for council yesterday or even had a consensus yesterday, then he would have to bring out the views of the committee, because we want to hear him talk. Even yesterday, there was this concern from the quarters that he is not firm. He should be firm. He should not allow the ranking member to bully him and all that. So these concerns were raised. So for him, I'm sure he would want to put it in a word or two this morning.
I said final question, but this just came to my mind. What were the police doing at the time when members of parliament were destroying public property?
So if you really come to parliament and you really want to come to the vetting chamber, you can see that at the main gate, there are policemen standing stationed there.
That's right, before you climb up.
There are policemen stationed there. So when it started, it didn't really feel like it would get to this level. But one interesting thing is that even when the police intervened, the MPs were still going ahead with whatever they were doing. So you can tell that even the police feels like these are people that are untouchable. So yes, I'm here to intervene. I need to be careful about it. Should it be forceful? Should it be, moderate? So it was more like these are people that we can't start. Let's be mindful of how we handle. So I mean, their presence didn't really deter them. They were not perturbed about continuing with their act. So clearly, they were more like invisible yesterday.
George, thank you for your time.
No mention to me.
Grateful. That's George Kwabena, reporter from Parliament. Here's a song for you.